I closed, then opened slowly. They don't match up? Here, get your own percept. BB tossed a road at me, and I took it curiously, and unfolded it. Click. Someone somewhere, or both, in millions or uncountable, requires, likes, needs, values, collects, drinks, eats, or uses as a drug a substance ident Loosh. Electricity, oil, oxygen, gold, wheat, water, land, old coins, uranium. This is a rare substance in somewhere, and those who possess Loosh find it vital for whatever it is used for. Faced with this question of supply and demand, a universal law of somewhere, someone decided to produce it artificially, so to speak, rather than search for it in its natural form. He decided to build a garden and grow Loosh. In the natural state, Loosh was found to originate from a series of vibrational actions in the carbon-oxygen cycle, and the residue was Loosh in varying degrees of purity. It occurred only during such action and secondarily during the reactive process. Prospectors from somewhere ranged far and wide in search of Loosh sources, and new discoveries were hailed with much enthusiasm and reward. So it was that someone and his garden changed all this. Far off in a remote area, he set to work on his experiment. First, he created a proper environment for the carbon-oxygen cycle where it would flourish. He created a balance with much care so that proper radiation and other nourishment would be in continuous supply. He then tried his first crop, which actually did produce Loosh, but only in small quantities and of comparatively low grade, not significant enough to take back to the heart of somewhere. The problem was twofold. The life period was too short, and the crop units themselves were too minute. This brought about limits in quality and quantity, as the crop had no time to generate Loosh in such close tolerances. Moreover, the Loosh could be harvested only at the moment of termination of the lifespan, not one moment before. His second crop was no better, if as good. He changed the environment to another part of the garden where the density was gaseous rather than liquid, and the higher density chemicals formed a solid base, and thus were still available. He planted numberless units in many varieties in a new form, with a great increase in size, some many thousands of times larger and more complex than the simple unicellular first crop. He reversed the carbon-oxygen cycle. Yet all had a basic uniformity. Like the first crop, they would reseed at regular intervals and terminate their lifespans automatically. To avoid the uneven distribution of chemicals and radiation which had been prevalent in the first crop, he immobilized the second crop. Each was designed to stay principally in its own section of the garden. To this end, each was given firm tendrils which burrowed deep into the more dense chemical matter. Attached to this was a stem or trunk which helped elevate the upper portion upward for its share of needed radiation. The upper portion, broad, thin, and somewhat fragile, was designed as a transducer of carbon-oxygen compounds to and from the crop unit. As an added thought, brilliant color radiators accompanied by small particle generators were mounted on each unit, usually near the top and symmetrically centered. He set up circulating patterns in the gaseous envelope around the crop, principally to aid in the reseeding process. Later, he discovered that the same turbulent effect served as a means of harvesting the Loosh. If the turbulence were violent enough, the crop would be blown down, the lifespan terminated, and the Loosh would discharge. This was especially useful when an immediate Loosh supply was desired at a particular point rather than at harvest time. Despite all of this, the second crop was most unsatisfactory. While it was true that a much greater quantity was attained, the unrefined Loosh produced was of such low grade that it was scarcely worth the effort. In addition, the growth period was now too long, and no increase in quality resulted. Some vital element was missing. Someone hovered over his garden for a long period in study before he attempted the third crop. It was indeed a challenge. True, he was partially successful. He had grown Loosh. Yet the product of his efforts fell far short of the wild, uncultivated variety. It was inevitable that he perceived the answer. The third crop was living proof of this truth. The original carbon-oxygen cycle must be included. Mobility must be restored. Both factors had shown great promise in high-grade Loosh production. If size could be added to this, much could be accomplished. With this plan in the forefront, someone removed various sample units from the first crop, which was still thriving in the liquid portion of the garden. He modified them to exist and grow in the gaseous area. He adapted them first to take nourishment from the second crop, which he permitted to abound for this very purpose. Thus it was that the first of the mobiles, the third crop, came into being. The mobiles took nourishment from the second crop, thus ending its lifespan and producing low-grade loosh. When each huge mobile terminated its own lifespan, additional loosh was produced. The quantity was massive, but the frequency pattern of the loosh residue still left much to be desired. It was by accident that someone came upon the prime catalyst as regards loosh production. The monstrous and slow-moving mobiles had a lifespan far out of proportion to their nourishment input. The growth and life termination process was of such length that soon the mobiles would all but decimate the second crop. The entire garden would be out of balance, and there would be no loosh production whatsoever. Both the second and third crop faced extinction. As the second crop grew scarce, energy needs of the mobiles became acute. Often 2 mobiles would seek to ingest the identical second crop unit. This created conflict, which resulted in physical struggle among 2 or more of the ungainly mobiles. Someone observed these struggles, at first bemused with the problem, then with great interest. As the struggles ensued, the mobiles were emanating loosh, not in fractional amounts, but in sizable, usable quantities and of a much higher purity. He quickly put the theory to the test. He removed another unit of first crop from the liquid garden area, redesigned it for the gaseous environment, but with one significant change. The new mobile would be somewhat smaller, but would require the ingestion of other mobiles for nourishment. This would solve the problem of overpopulation of mobiles, and at the same time would create good quantities of usable loosh during each conflict struggle, plus a bonus if the new class of mobile terminated the lifespan of the other. Someone would be able to transmit to somewhere practical amounts of reasonably pure loosh. Thus it was that the rule of the prime catalyst came into being. Conflict among carbon-oxygen cycle units brings forth consistent emanations of loosh. It was as simple as that. Satisfied that he had found the formula, someone prepared the fourth crop. He now knew that the third crop mobiles were too large and too long in lifespan to be ultimately practical. If grown in large numbers, the entire garden would have to be expanded and enlarged. There was not space enough to grow such massive single units and the proportionate leafy second crops to support them. Also, he reasoned correctly that more rapid and increased mobility would expand the conflict factor, with the resultant higher loosh output. In one single motion, someone terminated the lifespans of all the lumbering third crop mobiles. Going back to the first crop in the liquid area, he modified and expanded them into a multitude of shapes and sizes, gave them complex multicellular structures of high mobility. He designed them into a pattern of balance. There were those that ingested a second crop type of carbon cycle unit, basically immobile, as an energy source. There were others, very highly mobile, who required for energy the ingestion of other mobile modified first crop units. The completed circuit operated quite satisfactorily. The stationary second crop modification in the liquid environment flourished. Small, highly active liquid-breathing mobiles took nourishment, ate the second crop modification. Larger and or other active mobiles consumed for energy the smaller plant eaters. When any mobile grew too large and slow, it became an easy target for the smaller mobiles, who attacked in voracious numbers. The chemical residue from these ingestive actions settled to the bottom of the liquid medium, and so provided new nourishment for the stationaries, modified second crop, completing the circuit. The result was a steady flow of loosh, from the lifespan termination of the stationaries, from the intense conflict among the mobiles to avoid ingestion, and finally from the sudden termination of the lifespans of such mobiles as the inevitable product of such conflicts. Turning to another portion of his garden, the gaseous area with a dense compound base, someone applied the same techniques with even more advanced improvements. He added many varieties of stationaries, original second crop, to provide sufficient and diverse nourishment for the new mobiles he was to create. As in the other garden area, he made such mobiles into a balance of 2 species, those who ingested and drew energy from the second crop stationaries, and those who required other mobiles for sustenance. He created them in literally thousands of original types, small, large, yet none so large as the third crop mobiles, and ingeniously gave each some appurtenance for conflict. These took the form of mass, elusive speed, deceptive and or protective coating and or color radiation, wave action and particle perceptors and detectors, and unique higher density protuberances for gouging, grasping, and rending during conflict. All of the latter served neatly to add to and prolong the conflict periods, with the resultant increase in loosh emanation. As a side experiment, someone designed and created one form of mobile that was weak and ineffective by the standards of the other mobiles in the fourth crop. Yet this experimental mobile had two distinct advantages. It had the ability to ingest and take energy from both the stationaries and other mobiles. Second, someone pulled forth a piece of himself, no other source of such substance being known or available, to act as an intensive, ultimate trigger to mobility. Following the rule of attraction, someone knew that such infusion would create in this particular mobile species an unceasing mobility. Always, it would seek to satisfy the attraction this tiny motive himself engendered as it sought reunion with the infinite whole. Thus, the drive for satisfaction of energy requirements through ingestion would not be the only motivating force. More important, the needs and compulsions created by the piece of someone could not be satiated throughout the garden. Thus, the need for mobility would be ever present, and the conflict between this need and that of energy replacement would be constant, possibly a continuous, high-order Loosh emanator if it survived. The fourth crop exceeded all of someone's expectations. It became apparent that a consistent, useful flow of Loosh was being produced in the garden. The balance of life operated perfectly, with the conflict factor producing immense amounts of Loosh and a steady supplement brought into being by the constant lifespan terminations from all types of mobiles and stationaries. To handle the output, someone set up special collectors to aid in the harvest. He set up channels to convey the raw Loosh from his garden to somewhere. No longer did somewhere depend principally upon the wild state as the principal source of Loosh. The garden of someone had ended that. With the success of the garden and the production of Loosh by cultivated means, others began to design and build their gardens. This was in accordance with the law of supply and demand. Vacuum is an unstable condition, as the amounts of Loosh from someone's garden only partially met the requirements of somewhere. Collectors, on behalf of the others, actually entered the garden of someone to take advantage of those small emanations of Loosh overlooked or ignored by the collectors of someone. Someone, his work completed, returned to somewhere and occupied himself with other matters. Loosh production stayed at a constant level under the supervision of the collectors. The only alterations were ordered by someone himself. Under instructions from someone, the collectors periodically harvested segments of the fourth crop.
I will interject at this point. The someone is somewhere. Someone is Bob's way at the time of trying to stay neutral instead of saying something like a religious term like God, or Creator, or whatever. Somewhere, what we might call the heavens, somewhere in the astral planes, somewhere not too far from here, but not up here. Somewhere that's in a different state of matter. Now he's talking about, at this point he's talking about humanity, right? As we go on, we'll learn more about this. But listen to this. And I know it would be very, it's complicated, is that the right word? If it's your first time hearing this, once again, look it up on the internet. Robert Monroe, Loosh, go from there. Let's listen more.
This was done to ensure adequate chemicals, radiation, and other nourishment for the younger oncoming units. A secondary purpose was to provide occasional extra amounts of Loosh created by such harvesting. To reap such harvest, the collectors generated storms of turbulence and turmoil in both the gaseous envelope and the more solid chemical formations that were the base of the garden itself. Such upheavals had the effect of terminating lifespans of multitudes of the fourth crop as they were crushed under the rolling base formation or smothered under waves from the agitated liquid area of the garden. By peculiarity of design, fourth crop units could not maintain their carbon-oxygen cycle surrounded by the liquid medium. The garden pattern of life might have gone on thus throughout eternity, had it not been for the perception and inquisitiveness of someone. On occasion, he would study samples of Loosh from his garden. There was no motive in doing so other than the fact that someone may have held a remote continuing interest in his project. On a particular analysis of a Loosh sample, someone had casually examined the emanations and was about to return it to the reservoir when he became aware of a difference. It was very slight, but there it was. His interest centered immediately. He looked again. Woven delicately in with the more common Loosh emanations was a slender fragment of purified and distilled Loosh. This was an impossibility. Purified and distilled Loosh resulted only after the wild state Loosh had been processed many times. The Loosh from the garden of someone required the same treatment before it could be used. Yet here it was, so finely graded in its refined radiations that it could or would not return into compound with the raw substance. Someone reaffirmed his tests, and the result was still positive. There was a factor in his garden of which he was unaware. Quickly, someone left somewhere and returned to his garden. Outwardly, all seemed the same. The solid base gaseous areas of the garden were an endless carpet of green reflection from the thriving second crop. The modified first crop in the liquid area was in perfect accord with the action-reaction law, a division of cause and effect. Someone perceived without delay that the difference, the source of distilled Loosh, lay neither with the first nor with the second crop. He found his first momentary touch of distilled Loosh emanation in one of the units of the fourth crop, which had by then filtered throughout the plantings of the second crop. The flash came during the unusual action of this unit as it entered into a life-terminating struggle with another fourth crop unit. This alone would not create distilled Loosh, someone knew, and he probed deeper for the source. It was at that moment that he discovered the difference. The fourth crop unit was not struggling in conflict over an ingestible remnant of a weaker fourth crop unit, or a tasty frond from a nearby second crop stem, or to avoid termination of life and ingestion by the other conflicting fourth crop unit. It was in conflict to protect and save from life termination three of its own newly generated species huddled under a large second crop unit waiting for the outcome. There was no doubt about it. This was the action that produced the flashes of distilled Loosh. With this clue, someone examined the actions of other fourth crop units in the garden. He found similar flashes when other fourth crop units took the same action in defense of their young. Still, there was an inconsistency. The sum of all such flashes of distilled Loosh emanation from all such actions by the current fourth crop would not amount to half of the total he had found in the sample from the reservoir. It was obvious that another factor was present. Systematically, he hovered over the garden, extending his perception to all areas. Almost immediately, he found the source. High-order distilled Loosh radiation was originating from one particular section of the garden. Quickly, he hurried to the spot. There it was. An experimental modified fourth crop unit, one of those that contained a piece of himself in its functional pattern. It was standing alone under the leafy upper portion of a large second crop unit. It was not hungry. It was not in conflict with another fourth crop unit. It was not acting in defense of its young. Then why did it emanate distilled Loosh in such great quantity? Someone moved closer. His perception entered into the modified fourth crop unit, and then he knew. The unit was lonely. It was this effect that produced distilled Loosh. As someone drew back, he noted another unusual inconsistency. The modified fourth crop unit suddenly had become aware of his presence. It had collapsed and was jerking in strange convulsions on the solid base formation. Clear liquid was being expelled from the two radiation-perceiving orifices. With this, the distilled Loosh emitted became even more pronounced. It was from this that someone propounded his now famous DLP formula, which is in effect in the garden at this time. The balance of the story is well known. Someone included the fundamental in his formula. The creation of pure distilled Loosh is brought forth in type 4M units by the action of unfulfillment, but only if such pattern is enacted at a vibratory level above the sensory bounds of the environment. The greater the intensity of said pattern, the greater the output of Loosh distillate. To put the formula into effect, someone designed subtle changes in his garden, all of them familiar to every historian. The splitting of all crop units into halves to engender loneliness as they sought to reunite, and the encouragement of dominance of the Type 4M units are but two of the most noteworthy innovations. As it appears now, the garden is a fascinating spectacle of efficiency. The collectors have long since become masters at the art of the DLP formula. Type 4M units dominate and have spread throughout the entire garden, with the exception of the deeper portions of the liquid medium. These are the principal producers of Loosh distillate. From experience, the collectors have evolved an entire technology with supplementary tools for the harvesting of Loosh from the Type 4M units. The most common have been named love, friendship, family, greed, hate, pain, guilt, disease, pride, ambition, ownership, possession, sacrifice, and on a larger scale, nations, provincialism, wars, famine, religion, machines, freedom, industry, trade, to list a few. Loosh production is higher than ever before. Click. I was closed tightly, turned inward, stunned. My first reaction was there had to be some mistake. This was not the story history of Earth. BB had mixed it up with some other port of call on their cruise schedule. Yet as I ran the road again, the overlay of what little I knew of Earth's zoological and human history was uncomfortably accurate, albeit from another perspective. The food chain of Earth's ecobiologic systems had been well established. Knowing this about Mother Nature, some of the hardcore philosophic speculators had often pondered where the human animal fit in the process. The downside was obvious. Who ate us? Before it had been just that, speculation. Now, BB opened, plied. You get the percept, Ram? I dulled. Yeah, I get it. Well then, BB went on. What's Loosh got to do with learning? I opened slightly. And you got the rope before you came to Earth. BB smoothed. Like I gave you. It was in the TSI cruise brochure. It was in with hundreds of other rotes we got before we left. I opened more, but tightly. Where did the brochure come from? Why, yeah, from the cruise director. Where did he get it? BB flickered. I don't have a rote on that. He just dumped them on us and rolled. Here's the exciting and interesting stops we'll make on the cruise. I got a good percept because it was the last one we'd visit, so it was the last rote we got. That's why it was so clear. Some of the others are dim because they were in the middle. Not the Earth rote or humans. It's all clear, not wild at all. I hardened. And where did the cruise director come from? BB alighted. Oh, he and the rest are a bunch of curls from the system next to us. Why did they offer the cruise to you in KT-95? BB smoothed. Well, it was sort of a trade. We do it all the time with systems near us. What did they get in trade? BB lighted. Games. Games. We got more games than any system, 4 skips in any direction. I turned inward and closed. It was getting too hot to handle. If the rote was real, a huge if. I began to drop off. Anger, the feeling of being on the receiving end of a huge deception. The resentment at being manipulated, wanting to strike out at those who were conning me, us, all humans, who were taking something from us without our consent or permission. What happened to the freedom idea? Was every thought and action we took guided, no, directed and controlled just to produce more loosh, whatever that was, for a breakfast table or a fuel tank in a somewhere? And what could I do about it, even knowing? I dulled deeply and dropped off more and more. Hey, Ram. BB was fading rapidly. Where are you going? Return to the physical was near instantaneous, exactly as if I had pushed the panic button, which I had not done for so long. Strong sense of tiredness, both mental and physical. Neglected to check time of return. Low energy, no desire to do anything. Unable to get to sleep. Got up, went to the kitchen and made a cup of coffee. Sat and stared at the cup. With no energy or desire for exploration during the 2 weeks following, in a depressed state, the only production that surfaced was, "It is sunset."
It is sunset. It is sunset.
I'm completely shocked after watching this interview to see a scientist
Oh my
finally.
gosh.
The life weight.
Oh my gosh. Ooh, psychology of the shaman. I gotta check that one out. That just popped up. Cool. Psychology of the shaman. Anyways, let's see if we get this sorted out. So, I'm like super struggling. The multiple sclerosis from the poisonous, venomous jibbity jab that I received back in 2009 is taking its toll on me. But again, after what we just listened, it would make sense why I and everyone else is going through the suffering and pain that we're going through. Because something is feeding upon that suffering and pain, the emotions, and it makes a lot more sense in this story that allegedly Bob received this information from BB, a being from the other side, as he was doing his astral journeys. Yeah. You know, there's a lot of people out there that say suffering is out there to teach you something. But when one actually thinks about that, critically thinks about that, one realizes something. What a pile of horse shit that is. Listen, we don't learn anything from suffering. And they say, oh, no, we come here and reincarnate, and we're here to we have lessons to be learned. But the interesting thing about this reincarnation soul trap matrix that we're in, all of our memories are wiped out, erased when we come here. Just bits and pieces at best, fragments. A few have of what was. And you know, it's interesting, the same as where we had to. When we look at the ancient texts, whether the Abrahamic faiths or others, very little information. Very, very, very little. Actually, it's not even qualified to actually be useful information of what heaven is and what hell is. If we're honest. So what do? We conjure up things, right? We fill in the gaps. But shamans knew for a long time, and people in the past century who have started learning about journeying into the astral plane, having out-of-body experiences, they started receiving information. And a lot of that information is hidden from us. That's useful for us. You know, they want us to have all this nonsense about it's all about love. What's love got to do with it? Just a second-hand emotion. You think Tina Turner might have do something? I bet she did. Of course, all the religious people, they all called her a witch. Isn't that interesting? Makes you wonder who actually is the witch. Just saying, I'm not accusing, I'm just saying. You know, when you think about this stuff, really, what one goes through, the people around you that go through what they go through, and you continue to ask yourself why, and like victims of some kind of Stockholm syndrome, you're trying to rationalize and justifying the things that we witness and experience. Could it possibly be that in the end, that they are ethereal beings, entities, spirits, people call them demons, angels, all sorts of things, whatever label you want to call it. Some people say they look like humans. Some people say they look like something that looks more like a reptilian or whatever. Mind you, it seems to be, from at least my own observation, they're shapeshifters. So God knows what they really look like. Yeah. And who is this someone that Bob was talking about? Robert Monroe was talking about this someone. You know, in the Bible, Yahweh is a dragon. Oh, by the way, if you're looking at this image, and if you look real closely, there's a shadow dragon that manifests in a tree I filmed. He's checking them out. A dragon. They say the dragons weren't real. That's what they tell us today, right? Yet the ancients all knew. They all had statues and carvings and idols that all looked very similar, like dragons, like a dragon. I'm just saying, just connecting the dots. Just connecting the dots. Like a good investigator, just connecting the dots. The Demirj, him and his buddies, They figured out a way for them, being these beings of energy, of plasma, and how to feed upon us. And we thought we were at the top of the food chain. But are we? Are we? Here's something about the human body. The human body has thousands, 4,000 plus flaws, problems with it. There's been a lot of research done on the human body. Maybe I'll look it up real fast. I won't do all 4,000 of them, obviously, but maybe we can do maybe the top 10 of the things wrong with the human body.
Of the shaman is nearly as old as human consciousness itself, predating the earliest recorded civilization.
No. I'm really fumbling and stumbling tonight. Anyway, sorry about it. For those who might have heard me in a previous show earlier, live that I was going to do mine at 9, I got distracted. I was watching Josh, Sons of God Ministry. I got all distracted, and then I started feeding the Loosh. Yeah. If you want to watch how it works, go to one of these many lives on TikTok and the debates and the arguments and people yelling at each other and the emotion that you feel. You and I, we're generating Loosh. And that's the reason why we're going about it. Okay, see the human body. You know, they want to tell you about us how wonderful the human body is, right? What do I want to say? The human body is flawed? I know that's not the best way to say it. Top 10 flaws of the human body. You can find this. There's like stuff if you go and line. Most people don't even think about doing this, right? But do it. You'll start to understand. I mean, what the hell is going on with me? What's going on with my family, my relatives, my friends? Oh yeah, and we got to make sure that it gets even worse, right? Did you ever wonder about what we just witnessed the past 3 years? What kind of loose producing event took place, like a human sacrifice. On the number of people that I know in my life that have been damaged by that phantom, like a fang, that they poke in you. And it mimics a lot of the exact same things that happens to you when you are poisoned by a snake. Snake's venom. Let's start one. Top one flaw in the human body: unsound spine. The number of spinal problems and injuries that happen in our lives. Something to really think about. The next one is inflexible knee. Now, I told you there's a book out there that talks about the thousands of flaws of the human body, but we're not supposed to focus on that, remember? If you focus on that, then you're being negative, right? Are we being negative? Too narrow of a pelvis. Here's one that hits home for me. Exposed testicles. You ever thought about that? If you're a guy, what the hell was that design all about? Jeez. Crowded teeth. Huge problem. You have huge teeth problems. Amazing. Meandering arteries. Did you know about that? We have a backward retina. That's the thing about. I'm not going to go into detail about this stuff. Maybe in another show we'll go into detail about the many flaws, the poor design that we have been shoved into in this meat suit, this avatar. It is truly poorly designed. Misrouted nerves. I mean, with MS, the myelin sheath, right? They call it plaque. Interesting though, those little dots. They move around. Sometimes they're there when I have MRIs and CAT scans, and sometimes they're not. How they move around? How does the hell does that happen? Misplaced vocal box. That's something I never thought about. If I'm pronouncing this right, a cluggy brain. And here's the thing you think about that. The brain itself. We talk about, we see that what happens to us is when we come into this realm, we can't speak, we can't communicate in any way outside of our eyes and our mouth, and tears and crying. Our brains, my brain is extremely sluggish. Not anything like it used to be. And even when it's at its prime, wasn't all that great, to be honest with you. Let's think about nature. Animals. I think we might have talked about this or listened to the show last night. Mark mentioned about how we're one of the few creatures in all the world in which, when you are born, you're totally, utterly dependent on another human being for everything. While I've been sitting in my garden this past week hanging out, although he wasn't here, or she wasn't here today. Hopefully she'll be back tomorrow. Or maybe a neighbor's cat got her. Or it. The gift. Baby bunny. Yeah, baby bunnies, they're just, after a week or two, they're on their own. I don't know how many weeks it is, actually. You know what I mean? Maybe a month. I can't even remember how long it is. I don't even think it's a month. I don't know. Anyways, it wasn't that big, and it was running around on its own. And for us, it's years and years and years and years and years before we're even capable of even kind of being on our own. And in fact, very few people in this realm are even capable of functioning on their own. I mean, it goes on and on and on when you think about it. So why are we here? Some people try to say it's the fall of man. That we committed, our forefathers committed some terrible sin against Yahweh, the dragon, the demiurge, the God that wants blood sacrifice. I'm just saying, that's what it says. Yeah. So we were put into this garden, and it is our fault for being put into this garden. Is there a possibility that that is correct? What if we did, on the other side, get suckered into this, hoodwinked? We agreed. We didn't know what we were getting ourselves into. We agreed to the life script that we were given. On the other side, somebody said, this is what's going to happen. And we're like, yeah. And of course, we're all drugged up on the Loosh. And we're saying, yeah. Not realizing what fully it means to come over here on the other side. I hope you understand. I'm not diminishing or making fun of suffering, far from it. But I do see clearly from organized religion and many other institutions out there that their answer for suffering is not satisfactory. Not to anybody who is willing to think critically. They'll keep on telling you that it's your fault. It was your decisions. My decision when I was 5? 7? 12? When did decisions start to be my decisions? When did decisions in your own life become your own? If we're honest about things, there's very little we have in control of as far as our decision making. Most of us are not going to be given, for instance, 100,000 options of who your spouse will be. Far from that. None of us, unless we were agreed upon in the previous life, with maybe the soul group that we are part of, to come here, to the place that you're dwelling at now. Maybe it's in England. Maybe it's in France. Maybe it's in Spain. Maybe it's in Canada. Maybe it's in America. Maybe it's in South America. Wherever it may be. The odds are that you have much of a choice of where you're living are pretty slim. So you weren't given very many options for a spouse to begin with, and where you live, you're given an avatar, a meat suit that is full of problems, thousands of problems, genetic problems. Which we already looked at some of the basic ones from the spine, the nervous system. If you're a guy, your freaking testicles. What the hell are your balls whapping around like that anyways? Just saying. It goes on and on and on. The avatar that we walk in, it's full of flaws. And then they will tell you with a straight face, how magnificent and amazing the human body is. Now, mind you, there are some amazing things that people do, but whether there's, parkour stuff, or is that what they call it? Parkour? I can't remember. Someone, she's not here with me. Anyways, those dudes that jump all over the place. That's amazing. Gymnasts. Amazing stuff, right? I'm not too impressed with people running, marathons or just running. But it's cool. I mean, I'm not impressed with it. Swimming, basic. Really, when we honestly look at the human body, it's not really that adaptable. Not to the outside. We need to terraform things in order even to use our body. For the most part. Although our ancestors were more in tune with the creation and all that, as they traversed the woods, the forests, and the plains, they recognized their limitations. They knew. In fact, if we're honest about things, how good are we as far as, we look at what a wolf does, a pack of wolves, or lions, how they hunt their prey, hunt it down, with their own natural abilities. Yet we need what? Weapons. Although say it's through evolution. Really? If it was really based on evolution, we shouldn't be around. We got so many design flaws when it comes to the body, we should never even be close to being around. Loosh. Our emotions. Anger. You know what the highest form of Loosh is? Love. That's right, love is an emotion. They always tell us, you hear these people, it's all about love, it's all about love, it's all about love. Very vague term. Love, 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 love. I love, 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 love you. Love you, love, 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 love. Well, it turns out that motion generates the highest form, the purest form of Loosh that these things feed off of. But remember, it's emotion. It's not the same thing as commitment, dedication, sacrifice, and the many elements that we claim that make up love. But remember, love is an emotion. How many of us in our lives have been destroyed through the act of love? Let's be honest about this. How many of us had a breakup with someone that they incredibly loved? Just loved and loved so much. My high school sweetheart. Man, did I love her. She broke my heart. The funny thing is, 16 years later, when I was doing The Secret, she came back all right. She came back with a vengeance. Wonderful honeymoon for about a month. But oh my God, they never tell you about the other side of this thing about The Secret and getting what you want, you know what I mean? Visualizing what you want. There's always a prize. How many of us have been divorced? Come from broken homes. On and it goes. Love. Love, and it turns out, has created, in all honesty, most of our pain in this world. Isn't that interesting? If we're honest about it. Now people say, you're negative, you're being negative, you're being negative. No, this is what it's reality. It's not, we can whisper a whole bunch of sweet nothings to each other and to ourselves, but that's all it is, folks. It's sweet nothings. Meanwhile, these entities, they're laughing their balls off. Let's think about this. When it talks about this thing about these entities, these beings on the other side, that we call them spirits or demons or devils or angels or whatever the hell we're called, jinn, whatever. And there's a million other names. I'm sure we're not even naming them properly, right? Or describing them properly. Wouldn't it be convenient if you were to get the rest of the majority of humanity focused on one single entity? They call him Satan or whatever the hell. The devil, right? Satan. He's the reason for all this, right? Wouldn't that be great for you to have created an imaginary scapegoat? Something you can put all your focus and anger at. It's Satan's fault. Satan runs this world. Meanwhile, actually, there are multiple entities, just like those people that they could dare to call pagans. The pagans calling each other pagan is so fascinating. Pagans, right? The country folk, the simple folk, hey, what if there are multiple entities on the other side, all around us, in parallel universes, feeding off us, like we're a giant gas station for them? To me, it kind of makes sense. So everyone's focusing on an imaginary entity. And because they're shapeshifters, I can't even move my mouth today. Oh my God. I did actually finally get a medical marijuana card. It just showed up. So I'm hoping that might help things because, man, I'm suffering so bad. And I haven't been using anything for several years now. And I'm just like, shit, I got to do something. This stuff is taking its toll on me. So anyways, which I'm not really happy about doing because, honestly, I'm sure there's some dude real close to me somewhere who's growing some stuff, and it's probably 100 times better than the crap that's in these dispensaries. But that's right, more Loosh production, right? So we blame us on an imaginary being we call, the adversary, right? because it's a generic term, right? And in the Bible and all these other books, it could be an entity, or it could be a group of people, or it could be this, that, or the other, or a human being, or it's whoever you want to call Satan. Hey, Jesus called Peter Satan. Get thee behind me, Satan. Meanwhile, there's all these entities all around us, and they give little subtle hints into these different sacred texts. Like the Bible, it talks about the legions, right? And the demoniac. But you know what? They didn't go into great detail about that, did they? They really didn't. Like everything else, not much detail. You have to fill in the gaps. That's how these mystery schools work, by the way. You got to fill in the gaps. And by the way, guess what the mystery school is? It's you. You're the mystery school. You're the mystery. So we have all these multiple entities. Supposedly, let's play along with it, right? I know you're going, no. Play along with it. Play along with it. Calm down. Be honest. Let it go until you know 100%. If you knew 100%, absolute for certain, the truth, you wouldn't get upset about any of this stuff. The reason why you get upset is because they make sure that you just know just a little bit. And then you operate in belief systems. And then once those belief systems are challenged, your worldview, what happens? You start melting down. We all do it. We all melt down. It's true. We'll get so upset. No. I know the truth. I read it in this book. It says right there it has to be true. And so it goes. Oh, there is such a thing as the dark arts, black magic. The spells, they are powerful. And they are governing our lives. Until we take back our own personal sovereignty. That's right. What are some of the things we can do about this? Well, one of the things we first could do is, in my opinion at least, stop believing anything. Demand proof. Absolute proof. And when they use this bullshit argument about faith, you say, you know what? You can take that faith and shove it where the sun don't shine. Maybe you can produce some more Loosh for your buddies. Yeah. Faith. Yeah. Just believe. Put the blinders on. Operate in cognitive dissonance. In Stockholm Syndrome. Right? And there's a few other terms I would think I need to work on. But anyways, yeah. And if you challenge anything, guess what happens? You get ostracized by the group. So you see more pain and suffering and more Loosh. It's fascinating, this place. But I discovered something in my journey. The only ones that are truly going to cross on to the other side are those who find themselves. There's a whole bunch of people that when they cross the other side, they're going to be waiting for Allah, Yahweh, Jesus, and multiple other gods, images that they have allowed to be embedded into their brains and their psyche. And so when they get to the other side, these entities are going to show. One will show up. Remember, these are shapeshifters. Welcome home, sweetie. We're so proud of you. We're so glad you're back. Come into the light. But here's the problem. You have more morality than they do. You're more honest than they are. And because of that, you have at least a couple hands up over them already. They know that. They can't afford that. So they got to constantly put you on edge and get you to totally doubting yourself. He says they can be like a god. Wait a minute. Has anybody seen that they said God? No. None of us have seen the God. Could it possibly be that you are this being, this what's inside this meat suit, your avatar, that possible being that could be like a said God? In other words, when you get to the other side, you remember when you get to the other side, if it's true, and there's a lot of data out there that says that when you're on the other side in the spirit form, you'll be able to see 360 degrees. And the presence and awareness will be magnified. God, how many fold? What, we can only see about 5% of the light spectrum. And then if we just go stare straight and see how much you actually see around you. Not very much, do you? We have very limited sight, very limited hearing, very limited awareness. They had to count on that. When you realize there's entities standing next to you and around you and hooking up on you, and you don't even notice it, oh, that's a shocker. Yeah, we're not very aware. Far from it, but on the other side, we will be. If we can conquer what's going on here within ourselves and the BS that's around us, if we do not conform, could be possibly if we do not conform, if we stay true to ourselves, learn to be the strong warrior, the wolf that you are. Or maybe you're a tiger or a lion or whatever it is. You're a courageous being. A strong being. That's the reason why I can endure suffering day in and day out for decades. I've been dealing with it for half a century. Some have been dealing with it for a whole century. Day in and day out, by the way. There's moments of reprieve. But in this dualistic system, the vast majority of your existence will be in suffering. Because that's why you're here. And they'll tell you, oh, it's to learn lessons. What's the lesson? To learn how to suffer? Yeah. And love it and enjoy it, right? Horseshit. There's a lot of entities out there, though, that want you to believe that. So we need to learn to fight against the false light. You hear about this false light before? Well, it's all around us. It's in the form of very many all sorts of different movements, whether it's religion, different philosophies, and different movements, and and twisted false science. It's all around us. Television, the internet, 99% of everything that we ever learn is nothing but the false light. If you don't agree with me now, you will at some point in your life. Or you'll be coming back here. I can guarantee you that. False light. False hope. It's about love, don't you see? So you're all desperate in need for love. You want to feel like you belong. I know. I hear the same. We all want to be desired and loved and appreciated, right? But we don't even really know what that means. And fully remember, it's an emotion. And so we never get much of it, right? You see this happen all the time, right? Why do people actually cheat on each other? Well, part of it might be genes and genetics and the fact that we're actually designed to not be monogamous. That could be the possibility. But the other part of it is the unsatisfaction, or the dissatisfaction of living in a committed relationship. Let's be honest. you got to deal with your husband or your wife. And when they get fat, or when you start to see the pathetic side of them, or the ridiculous side of them, maybe you'll end up in a relationship with somebody who ends up being a drug addict, and they use all your money and other resources on drugs. Or maybe they're an alcoholic and they'll be abusive. By the way, both sex can be abusive. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or woman. You can be pretty damn abusive. We all can be very abusive, especially with our tongue, right? Oh, what a great way to manufacture Loosh. With our tongue. Then they'll tell you it's your fault. Even though you didn't design you, something else or something else has designed you. It's all your fault. It's all your fault. If you just wanted a sign on the dotted line on the other side and agreed to come here, and it was Boys Town, Girls Town, what do they have this town? If you just wouldn't agree to it, you wouldn't be going through all this misery, suffering, and pain. Right? But if you really knew what you were going through, would you go through it? Or maybe on the other side, they say, you have to do this for us. Don't you love us? You have to sacrifice for us. It seems very clear that the message in many of these ancient texts is to become strong. Deal with such things as the dark, shadowy side of yourself. Fight courageously. Treat yourself as a king when no one else will. Or a queen, for that matter, right? King or queen. Right? To be that warrior that you really are, that you were always meant to be. See, something happened. It seems to me, at least. We got trapped into this. I have this vision, and from what I can tell, that there are these entities. They appear as angels of light, right? Or they could be also very dark-looking entities. They're very frightening-looking entities, right? Whatever it takes. And I picture them running around like children in the forest or on a campground with their nets catching lightning bugs at night. We're the lightning bugs, and they're catching us. And they put us through their little processing plant, figuratively speaking, and prepare us to become giant Loosh batteries. Bipedal. 4-limb, 5-limb, whatever. Think about what I'm saying. You don't have to believe it. Just think about it. Ask yourself, really honestly, has anybody really offered you any satisfactory reasons for the suffering and the pain we're going through? And how long are you going to be willing to accept the blame for it all? It is a form of Stockholm Syndrome, right? Oh yeah. The oppressors. The oppressed is like, oh yeah, my oppressor is just the most wonderful thing there ever was. And maybe your life is not as bad as others, still suffering. And just imagine if you were, somebody. Well, I'll first talk about my ancestors. The trails, plural, of tears, in which millions of them were starved to death, abused sexually and physically, and unlived, as you can say, in this wonderful Loosh factory. Look, you can't say dead. So, yeah. What they went through. But by the way, they're not alone, because everybody else has gone through it one way or the other. Even the oppressors at one time had to go through it themselves. Let's look at the Europeans. Every year, the endless wars for thousands of years. They're still going on. The 1,000-year war between New Constantinople of Moscow and in the Vatican for 1,000+ years now. We're witnessing right now what's going on over there. That's part of that war. Hey, and just don't forget about that. What about the 3-year wars and the 7-year wars and the 30-year wars and 100-year wars and on and on. And just think of all the people. Just in the Eurasia, there'll be constant more and more and more. In fact, that's part of this soul trap matrix system is what they use to enslave us. Religion, which is mind control. There's many different forms of it. The usury, the banking system. Make sure everybody's indebted to it. And war. The cycle goes on and on and on. And that cycle is proven to produce an amazing amount of loose energy. A form of energy that these entities feed upon. These same entities that a lot of people would end up calling gods. Spirits, and demons, and angels, and blah, 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 right? So, if you're not prepared to deal with the false light here and to really face it head on, then when you get to the other side, what was clear to me at least, they're waiting there, and man, they're going to love bomb the living hell out of you. And you're going to buy into it. I'm going to buy into it if we're not prepare ourselves. We're going to buy into it. And we're going to, they love me. It's like some cartoon character from the Walt Disney, right? Like Goofy or something, drugged up Goofy or whoever it may be. Oh, yeah. Oh, they love me. They love me. They love me. Come follow us. Here's the light. Come join us. Go down that light. Come on, come join us. Oh, we love you. Oh, I just so love. They love me. They love me. Oh, I found my home again. Meanwhile, you've totally lost all your ability to reason and think, right? Because here's the thing. Those same entities that say they love you put you through this living hell. Here. And fed upon you. For 3 or 5 or 15 or 50 or 100 years. Just fed upon you on a daily basis. So, and here's the thing. I'm pretty clear about this, at least from what I can tell. So once you start to have enough courage to face the false light here, then there's the darkness. You will have your dark night. You will. In this world. If you face the false light, you will have to then face through your dark night of the soul. And you're going to see things that I've seen. And maybe you'll film things that I film. And you're going to have to get used to that now. And by the way, here's the funny thing about this whole system is, you try to tell people about what you're seeing, what you're experiencing, what's happening, guess what happens? More Loosh is produced. How's that? You're mocked, made fun of, and ridiculed, and much more isolated and thrown to the curb, ostracized. It's a fascinating system that they created. So when you're on the other side, then, if you do have enough strength to not buy in the bullshit of the false light and the love bombing, you're then not going to deal with the darkness. So the things you find and see here and witness here, just now magnify that, like legions. Legions upon legions. That's going to force many of you to go back into the false light. And when you go back into the false light, it seems pretty self-evident that you're then going to be reprocessed and brought back here. And who knows, maybe the next time around you're going to be some poor starving kid in Bangladesh hanging out in the dump there, picking garbage and to find your food, right? And that's what your life is going to be growing up. And then you're going to now understand why they are like calling you every 5 minutes trying to steal your money from you, because they were told to do so, and it's because that produces more Loosh on both ends. You get it? So it's this whole thing about becoming very stoic and very strong to be the warrior that you are. And it seems very clear to me at this point as well. If you haven't, and I haven't really done much of, but I'm seeing that's one of my big failures in my preparation for the next side is not doing hardly any or enough of the astroplaning adventures and out-of-body experiences to prepare myself as well. But we now have a lot of information about that, and so we'll probably be talking about this. This will be part of my YouTube channel stuff as well. So I'm going to be trying to make videos so you can watch it and go over stuff in more detail, right? I'm not asking for your money or your subscriptions or your likes or your thumbs up or anything of that stuff. So don't really care one way or the other, to be honest with you. If you do so, that's awfully nice and sweet of you. If you don't, I don't blame you. I have time forget to myself to like a video, but so it doesn't really matter. The fact of the matter is the information and preparing ourselves and being honest about what the hell is really going on in this world and in our own lives. Because the unfortunate reality is we don't know what the hell's going on. We don't. And you can read all day long in a book. Not equate to reality. No. Far from it. Just because you read a few words on a page doesn't mean that in the end of the day it translates into reality. Reality is when you become very aware of what's going on with you, your body, your surrounding, what's happening. How is it happening? Why is it happening? For real. Now, the easy thing, what most people do is to do that. Give me the simple, easy answer. Something that doesn't require any effort on my part, right? Or something like a Jesus would come with. Please, I need a Savior. Well, it turns out you're going to be your Savior. No, I can't do it. All right. If you can't do it, you can't do it. I mean, I understand. And listen, I went through the same thing until I kind of, at this point in my journey, I realized I have to do it. There is no one else going to do it. There's no one else going to do it for me. You see, this place is the preparation, this place for preparation for what the next phase is. And if you're not prepared for the next phase, then you will just, as I said, be recycled back here until you wake up to what you have to do, right? And the damnedest effing thing is, you're not going to find it in a book. You're not going to find it solely in one book, let's put it that way, or in any movements or any particular religion or some guru. You're going to have to find it inside. You have to go inward. You don't have a choice. That's how this place is designed. One of the things in this process, and when it comes to dealing with the false light and all the emotions, is to become very still, to be steady, to calm the storm. You have to do it. So here's the thing that you could do with TikTok. Instead of joining in the shit show, step back, observe what's going on with you, stabilize yourself, recognize what's going on. Are you getting upset? Are you getting angry? Are you getting ready to call somebody a name? By the way, I failed this terribly. In fact, I enjoy poking at people, just like so many others. It's fun, especially when you're listening to an absolute asshole. It's fun to expose them. But anyways, it's something you have to work on, right? Because if I don't work on it here, it's going to come in droves next life. So maybe with this TikTok thing, instead of using it for entertainment, use it to discipline your mind your spirit, who you are. Because if we don't, we ain't going to go very far in the next life. Talk about a short journey. So there's two things we got to deal with, two primary things we got to deal with in this life. We have to identify a false light. And within that, then we have to not only identify it, but then reject it, push away from it, not accept it. It's going to be very difficult for us to do in this life, right? Many of us go falling back into religions and other things, or groups, covens, all sorts of things, right? You know what I mean? Hoping that they're going to give us the answer, some the latest guru or whatever. Right? And then the next thing, once you get to a certain point in your strength and courage, then you're going to have to deal with the darkness, the spiritual side of things, and also the other people in your life. You think it's bad now, it's only going to get worse. People don't want to hear this. They want to hear anything but this. But I'm not going to lie to you. I hate being lied to, and I'm not going to lie to you. It isn't going to get better. So what we have to do is then to develop what they call a thick skin, some toughness, become the warrior we're supposed to be. They don't want us to do that, do they? They want us to be weak and feeble and hopeless and depend on anything else but ourselves. But you know, the true essence, who you truly are, your true essence, you are that warrior. You are that princess, that queen, that king, that knight, that warrior, that medicine woman. You are that. See, this is why they don't want us to talk this way. They don't want us to talk about this, and then they demonize this whole thing about paganism and all that, because when you finally realize who you actually are, or who you're meant to be at least, you start exhibiting some strength, resistance, true resistance. See, true resistance will not be found within the matrix. No. It will never be found in the matrix. So you can join any political movement that you want. In fact, that's what they always want you to do. Join this group or that group. There's always some new horseshit show that shows up, right? This movement or that movement. And there's always these innumerable groups who have been have endless injustices to march in the streets, right? You're the answer. You always were the answer. You know, the more and more I think about with my research and study of the scriptures and all that about this Jesus character, if he did or not exist, it really doesn't matter. And once you get past what the real, you know, who they were talking to and all that, it was interesting some things that he did teach his followers, right? And one of the things is about love. It says, love thy brother as thyself. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Is it love? And if love is the greatest form of Loosh, what have we been doing all along to ourselves? No, Mike, you misunderstand. Do I? Oh, Mike, you sound like somebody that's been hurt and damaged. You think? And if you haven't been yet, and you're not that person, you haven't lived your life enough. It's coming, baby. It's coming, brother. It's coming. Love. Deceptive message within the scriptures. Love thy neighbor as thyself. How about this kind of stuff? Honor yourself. Honor your neighbor as yourself. Respect yourself. Respect your neighbor as yourself. All right? Use those adjectives, those words. Start painting a clear message instead of this vague term that turns out to be the purest form of Loosh, love. How about this one? Love God with all your heart, might, mind, and strength. Good luck on that one. Well, I do. I read my scriptures every day, and I get on my knees, and I pray, and I go to church on Sunday. Say what? Yeah, that's what I do. Do you know I love them? Yeah. No wonder God's so freaking angry at us. The true creator, that is. The ones that's beyond the pleroma, beyond this realm, beyond this creation, right? He doesn't seem too interested in us. Ever notice that? Now, mind you, this thing called the Demiurge and Yahweh or the devil or the God of the universe, it seems awfully interested in us. Especially our suffering. And this thing called love. Now, I'm sure you probably haven't heard much of this before. I doubt it. And if you have, please, love to hear how you heard about this before. There's just a few thousand of us that I know of that are paying attention to any of this. Love. If we could understand that love is the purest form of Loosh, then why would they want us to do that? Why would they want us to do that? And don't think for a moment that Robert Monroe was the first one to figure this out or had interactions with the other side. No, these entities, oh yeah, they were very much influential in these books. Tell them love, 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 love. Love, 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 love. Maybe we start telling our children, we cherish you, we honor you, we respect you. Maybe we should start telling our spouses this. Maybe we ought to start talking like warriors, like goddesses, like gods, instead of weak, feeble, defeated beings that we are right now. Oh, I could be all wrong. But my observation from all the people that have been barfing out love, 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 and how they love God with their heart, might, mind, and strength, they're screwing everything up. They can't even read the damn book, and they can't. They don't know how. They say they can, but they can't. They know they can't, and they refuse to. That's why they piecemeal things. They just want to read a few verses and then conjure up what they want it to be. Because if they read the thing for what it really says, you know what Jesus was? You know what he said he brought? Oh, he's a sword. A double-edged sword. He didn't come and bring peace. Ah. Love, 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 love. And then everybody barfs out, oh, I love you, brother. I love you, sister. First of all, we're not even brothers and sisters at this point, unless we're all leading each other down this ditch. And the second thing is love. Please don't tell me that. For I know you don't know what you're talking about. You just parroting what you've heard others say. Not really putting much thought and effort in any of it. Then we get back to this Bible thing just a little bit about Cain. Everyone gives Cain a terrible time, right? See, Cain, he offers up his sacrifice, his offering, I should say, was in line with the gods of Genesis 1. Whereas Abel is his blood sacrifice. You know what I mean? Get those sheep. Sacrifice them sheep. Sheep to the slaughter. You know, the funny thing is then afterwards, Yahweh shows up to Cain, sees his countenance and says, "What are you all upset about, bro? What the hell's wrong with you?" I tell you what, Cain, if you do what is right, you do what I tell you, I'll show you how you could rule over Abel. Isn't it interesting that Yahweh did that to Cain? And so what did Cain do? He sacrificed Abel. And then what did Yahweh do? He kicked him out, ostracized him, caused him to have more suffering and pain. Isn't it a fascinating story? But here's the thing about Cain. Cain's us. Each and every one of us. Each and every one of us that listens to this false God and this false light and this false promise. Each and every one of us. See, Cain wasn't a bad dude. He was turned into a bad dude. And he was deceived by these false gods. And he thought that by freaking rising up and defeating his brother who was oppressing him, yes he was, that's what it says. Let's put it this way. He rose up. When you rise up, it's because you're rising up against something that's oppressing you. The oppressing part I put in there. So anyways, that's what you do. That's what you do. You rise up, right? I mean, how many times have you seen that slogan and so many other, marches and new revolutions and all that? Rise up, people, rise up. Now, in the end, Cain would have been better if you just not have listened to Yahweh, didn't take any of it personally, and walked away from that madness. Realizing, regardless of what he was going to do, he was going to receive a whole bunch of darts anyways. So might just become your own warrior, your own man, right? What's so terrible about being ostracized from this world after all anyways? And when you live this life for a while, it's not such a big deal. Really, it isn't. You realize the blessing that isolation is. It gives you a chance to think through stuff, to start to use that God-given brain of yours, right? To use it against the gods. To use it against the beings that have been oppressing us. Beware of that light. Beware of it. And beware of the darkness. And understand, you don't know what the darkness is for the most part. And you certainly don't know what that false light is if you were still part of any of these organizations. And you're still putting your trust in any book. And not in yourself. Get honest about what you're witnessing, what you're facing, what you're dealing with. And you know what? When the rest of the world says, "Oh, stop that bellyache, and we don't want to hear about your crap," you say, "You know what? Hey, listen, they're doing what they're supposed to be doing, because that's what they are. They're right now. They're just bipedal Loosh producers, and they cannot handle the truth, and they don't want to hear the truth because they don't want to be reminded about their truth." People don't want to know about that. Yeah, be a warrior. Anyways, let's listen to some music. Maybe if anybody is interested, and most people are not, and that's okay with me, by the way. If you're not, maybe we'll play another video and then talk a little more about this stuff. Now, for many of you, you're not going to be able to handle what I said. You're going to put despair and depression from it. But you missed the point. You're missing the point. But you first have to be aware of the problem in order to do something about it. And get honest about it, right? If we don't get honest about it, then, well, it's going to keep on being the same old crap. So, anyways, let's look a bit about Loosh, astral travel. Far Journeys, the mystery of Loosh. One of his many, where'd he go? In one of his many out-of-body travels, a visionary researcher, Robert Monroe, came across the story of Loosh cultivating and harvesting, and was shocked to discover how humans and our emotional energies may fit into the cosmic food chain. The name of the book that you want to get is called Far Journeys. It would be, I believe, the second book, chapter 12. Robert Monroe is regarded as a modern pioneer and explorer in the non-physical realms, using out-of-body or astral travel. His first book on the subject, Journeys of the Body, was published in 1971, and Monroe treated it in quite a methodical and almost geographical manner. Obviously, the out-of-body travel and exploration is not new to mankind, but this was the first time in our modern era that somebody had taken the time and effort to document the realms of non-physical realities that surround our planet. As readers of his books already know, these realms are temporarily inhabited by all sorts of non-physical beings, including many of who are in between lifetimes on Earth. Some who visit while out of body, and some who visit in the same manner as that of travelers on guided tours. Consider how we enjoy a boat tour on the River Nile in Egypt and disembark temporarily to view the wonders of ancient Egyptian temples and ruins. Each tourist has in its hands a travel brochure which describes the highlights and history of each destination. The extract you're about to read is the travel brochure, description given to various non-physical tourists who visit the Earth while on their own cruise of curious sights of the omniverse. This extract picks up after a discussion between Monroe and one of these non-physical tourists, BB. Results, however, of these non-physical brochures are not read. Instead, they are experienced and felt and witnessed. A couple of Monroe's terms in the extract need clarifying. Click means change consciousness. Ident signifies a mental name or address. Note that this extract on the Earth's history and purpose only takes you to the point where conscious and sentient male and female humans come into existence. It does not describe the rise of civilizations in human history. Just look up Robert Monroe Loosh. Loosh is spelled Loosh. Go from there. You make your own decision about the thing. But, when we've talked about so far, right, the human body. the number of flaws in the human body, how imperfect it actually is, and how ill adapted it is for this environment. It is, though, a wonderful mechanism for producing what? Loosh. It's something to think about. Nevertheless, when I was ranting on for an hour, was about this whole idea of developing some self-determinism, strength within oneself, to deal with the false light and the lies and deceptions in this world and this physical plane, along with the darkness in this dualistic system that we live in, right? Preparing yourself for the next journey. To gain enough self-determinism and strength to withstand what's about to be unleashed on us when we go to the other side. You won't hear this from your religious sects. They won't tell you about this. They can't afford to tell you about it. The reason why they exist and have billions of members is because they serve the Matrix. If they told you the truth, this goes to this whole thing about the Tower of Babel. What was really going on? And why did these said gods get so upset with them? I argue that what was going on was after the cataclysmic event that they created to produce more Loosh, that a few folks still had a memory of what was going on and what happened in the past and what they're dealing with in their present. And they said, you know what, we need to figure out how to reach these people, these entities, these beings on the astral plane and defeat them. And this is in part of that club of ethereal spiritual beings was Orshaway, right? And so what they did is they got together and they said, hey man, we're going to build this tower, we're going to get up there and we're going to fight these things. We're going to fight it. We're going to fight this system, this matrix. And so what did they do? Oh boy, we better confuse everybody, confuse the languages, because if people actually figure out what's really going on, hey, they might wake up to what's happening to them, and they might actually start helping each other to fight against the oppressors, the real oppressors. That's the real story of the Tower of Babel. You won't hear that though from anybody in the main religious sects of the world. No, we need to keep the billions bickering and arguing and fetching over shit that doesn't matter. And we have to make sure they're always constantly divided, and we can raise as much Loosh as possible. This is the reality of things. Getting anybody to realize this, well, I don't know if it's really my mission or not. As I always tell people, there's 3 fingers pointing back at me, and if anything, the person who needs to hear me speak the most is myself. Just as it is for you. My soul, my essence, my true being tells me that what I'm saying is the closest thing to the truth that I've heard yet. It certainly makes the most sense of all the suffering that I've experienced in my life. And the shocking thing is that all the suffering that I've gone through is just a drop in the bucket. And that there's billions of people that have worse situation than I do. And people just roll their eyes and go, oh well. At least I'm not them. The Daymers and all the other entities must really love me. I'm not suffering as bad as they are. Yet. Yeah, when I get the other side, my hope is that there's going to be I'm not only going to be chewing gum and kicking ass, but I'm going to be taking names and I'm going to be double kicking ass. I ain't buying any of this crap. I ain't buying any of the crap in this realm, and I'm sure the hell not going to be buying any of their crap in the other realm. If I can help it. But that means we have to become extremely strong to resist what's going to be unleashed on us. And we must hold these things accountable. See, that's what comes back to the Tower of Babel, what's really about. Holding them accountable. Yes, these entities, holding them accountable for all the suffering and pain and misery that they themselves created. And then pass the buck on the victim. It's fascinating. The narcissism, the victimization. It's above, so below, right? No, Mike, you don't know what you're talking about. I don't. Well, I've heard all sorts of other arguments that have led to nowhere. Yeah, it's pretty clear that we have been the victims of these entities, these beings. And it is pretty much universal in most cultures that reincarnation actually is a reality. That was redundant. Anyways, that this reality is something that's believed in multiple cultures. It's only in the West and the few, well, I would have to say, past 1,000 years in particular, with the masters of, or the rulers of evil, right, of this Loosh farm of Rome, with the systematic extermination of tens of thousands of cultures, literally, that they one of the things they've done is to the best ability to erase this memory. What could it possibly be that would happen periodically with this cataclysmic events, these great resets? And these cataclysmic events, apparently, at least it was recognized by many, just I thought 100 years ago, and this cataclysmic events didn't happen over hundreds of years. We're talking minutes. When people start wising up to what's going on, they do the big reset. And just imagine where we're at. It's taken us this long in the past 2 decades, in particular this past decade, to get people to wise up enough to see how absolutely evil all the institutions are in our lives. I mean, there have always been people out there warning us about that, but they didn't take it to the next level, right? And here we are. I wonder how many people are actually meant to escape this matrix. Think of it as like a giant Alcatraz. Escape from Alcatraz. Escape from New York City. It's the ultimate mission. The ultimate purpose. For those who still have any of their humanity left, to find a way to escape. We all recognize there's an issue. That's the reason why it's so easy for us to fall prey to God or a Savior, right? because we see the circumstances and we don't know where else to go. We haven't prepared ourselves. But maybe it's time we start preparing ourselves and start believing in ourselves a little more. Maybe the real Jesus, if there ever was one, we'll say there was a real Jesus. Maybe his real message, his real intent was to teach his people about that, right? But what happened was, in the course of time, through the corruption of the empire, they distorted the message, the story, right? After all, if they ever had the capacity to erase the history of tens of thousands of other cultures, would it be all that difficult to erase the true history about this character that they call today Jesus? In fact, I'll be honest with you, it seems pretty clear to me that this thing that they call Jesus today is a very evil entity at best. But I really believe it's another form of scapegoating. I think that these spiritual entities, just like Satan and Allah and all these other characters, they're just scapegoats so that you never focus on them. I think that's the reason why they created all these false narratives. It's like aliens. The distorted story of Sasquatch and Bigfoot. They don't want people to really know what's really going on, so they're never going to want you to know what's going on. And they never are going to use the mainstream media to tell you the truth. So if you heard of aliens from the mainstream media, you can count on the fact that it was bullshit. And the rulers of evil, the people, the human beings that help manage and control this plantation of Loosh production, and their job is never and never will be to tell you the truth. In order for them to maintain the power and to be atop the heap of this stinking pile of dung, then they have to do what they do, in which they commit giant mass human sacrifice. They call it democide and genocide. Today, to produce the Loosh, to make their masters happy. Then people say there's no such thing as dragons. And those are shadow dragons staring at you in this image. Nah, new children. Anyways. Yeah, sure. Well, he failed that one. I promise. This was a promise to keep us from killing each other. The number of people that have been absolutely exterminated in the name is enough to debunk that. That's ridiculous. That's wishful thinking. But then again, you're part of the Matrix and you're part of Loosh. Matrix too. It's gonna be, you missed everything that we talked about, so you'll have to come again sooner and hear the truth sooner and to realize how you've been victimized. How we've all been victimized by this system. The only way out is within. There's always been the answer, and the only way out is to learn to find your authentic self. If there was a real Jesus, I'm sure that's what he was teaching his people. And that's probably the real reason why they hung him on a cross. To remind everybody who's in charge. You forget about this silliness, about the whole idea about your autonomous self, and independence, and your authentic self. Forget about that stuff. You must suffer for the gods. And so it is, and it continues to this day. Yes, this is the way things are. Anyways, think about the things I said. Really pay attention. Really study the design flaw in the human body. This is a disaster. It's a wonderful meat suit for misery and pain and suffering, but outside of that. And then study Loosh. And also start learning about that dreaded thing called astral travel to prepare yourself for the next round. Your ancestors were doing that before they were all wiped out in the name of Jesus or Allah. Things to think about. Okay, so anybody for this may hear this on YouTube, that was me babbling and just sharing that with TikTok. TikTok's a disaster, absolute disaster. Anyways, but it's great for producing Loosh. Yeah. So I know a lot of things have been saying. For those who may hear this on the one channel, well, we got my two channels. Let's see. Actually, I wonder if we should just go with it or not. How long is this one? It's only 35 minutes. But anyways, so we talked about some of the design flaws of the body. As far as the new channel, that used to be, this has now another change of the name, right? Now it's the 14 Digital Shaman. I noticed a lot of people are really upset with me. And the few people that sponsored me are now really upset with me because of the steps that I've taken in the past month. And I imagine a few more of you will be upset with me. And as far as this channel, because I haven't posted anything in about 3 weeks. And that's the reason, because once again, I was blocked from posting any videos. So anyways, this will probably be the first time you see a video from me. And then the next would be my other channel, right? Which is the Lord of Ord, ORD3, Lord of Ord, right? I changed its name to that channel. I have, 2 weeks ago, I posted a couple of them, looks like I have quite a few videos. And then I got all distracted, to be honest with you. And I also felt like there's something was telling me it's time to kind of let go a little bit on filming forest spirits and tree spirits and Sasquatch and all that kind of stuff. Although I did, 2 weeks ago, I did film pretty good, short few seconds of looks to me like a Bigfoot. You can see the eye move, the mouth move, and all that kind of stuff. A lot has changed in the past month. A lot has changed in the past year. A lot has changed, but that's the thing. If you're constantly in the flow and in motion, in the pursuit of your own truth, your authentic self, and what's really going on, you realize that, the world is nothing of what anybody's been telling me. There's, and we're all just grabbing at straws, right? And it seems to me that maybe Robert Monroe, which I brought up before in this past year, about the Loosh thing might just have had a point. It was interesting. He was systematically shut down by the people in his own project. All right? In the Monroe Institute, and in particular, they were working out of, I don't know if they were working out of Virginia University or not. Anyways, regardless of that, they just put the kibosh on that, make fun of it. Anybody that supposedly would work with them and or as part of the institute, they just want nothing to do with this whole Loosh thing, right? They want to try to convince everybody the problem, why all these things are going on is because people's negativity. It need to be more positive, more love in the world. And of course, this isn't hardly from the truth. And in fact, we don't need more love. We need more honesty. We need more courage. We need more warriors. We need more people who are willing to stand up for all this nonsense, against all this nonsense, and to learn how to get through all this maze of BS, the yin and the yang, and prepare ourselves for what's to come in the next life. The dreadful thing is, I hate to say this, and I was wrong, and could be wrong again. There's always that possibility, but there's no one who's going to convince me at this point, based on their understanding of scriptures and what they believe in. You're going to need more than that at this point, when it comes to the story of Jesus and all that. There's something deeper going on that people just don't want to talk about. But we'll try to talk about it. Not that it means of offending people, for that's not the purpose. But the real purpose in all this is to try to develop some strategies to deal with the madness. So anyways, this will be my first video in at least 2 weeks on Lord of Lord. I don't know about it, just and then of course it'll be the first one in 3 or 4 weeks with the 40 and Digital Shaman, because once again, like I said, they had to block me again. They just keep blocking me from one lame excuse after another. Yeah, I won't play that shaman one. I'll watch it first before we do any of that. So, anyways, thank you for your time.